County Board of Election pledges to its citizens to conduct its business in a courteous and productive manner, showing respect for fellow board members, staff, and citizens. The board asks its citizens to conduct themselves in the same courtesy towards both school personnel and each other. As per board policy, Robert's Rules of Order will be used to conduct meetings. A moment of silence will be observed before each meeting. In addition to the moment of silence at each meeting held at a school site, the board will recite the Pledge of Allegiance. The board asks that you check your cell phones and other electronic devices to be certain they are either turned off or on vibrate to avoid interruptions of the meeting. This time we'll take a moment of silence. All right. Dr. Felder, recognitions tonight?
Indeed we do. And so our first recognition would be our wonderful spelling bee winners.
All right.
So at this time,
He's gonna come up. There you are.
okay, great.
Thank you, board members. Thank you, Orange County staff, for your support. This is the fourth year that we have done this, and just it's been a pleasure to be a part of this, and I really appreciate your support of our spelling bee. What I'm going to do this evening is we have 4 of the students that we'll recognize, and then have them come and shake your hands. And then we have another 4 who are in the lobby, and then we'll have them come in as well and do the same. So, first of all, to tell you that we just enjoyed a pizza party over at Cameron Park. And I thank Child Nutrition for supplying lemonade and cookies as well. And thanks to Cameron Park for allowing us to have the party there, and their media center and their staff for their support. We really appreciate that. All right, first of all, from Cameron Park, I want to recognize, come on up here, Ellie, where are you? There beside you. Come on up here, Ellie. Come on, you think I've done this 4 times? Be a little smoother than this. This is Ellie Berger, board members and staff. She's 5th grade at Cameron Park. And then next, Chris Lay. Chris Lay, will you come on up here, please? Chris Lay is from Central Elementary. Chris Lay is in 4th grade. This is Chris Lay Fawcett. And next, Malachi. Come on up, Malachi. This is Malachi Devereaux. Malachi, will you stand over here on my right? Thank you, sir. Give me some space. I should have said that before. I apologize. This is Malachi Devereaux. He's 3rd grader from Eflin Sheets, who's their spelling champion. And finally, Jaden Lytle. Jaden, coming up here. Jaden may look familiar to you. Jaden,
Yes.
if you'll come on over here. This is Jaden's 3rd year in a row that he has won. Jaden's in 5th grade. He'll be moving on to Gravelly Hill Middle School next year, but this is the 3rd year in a row that he's won. I also want to recognize Jaden's mom, Catherine Stanley Davis. She is one of our sponsors. She's our spelling bee sponsor at Gravelly Hill as well. We really appreciate her and all of our staff at the schools who sponsor this spelling bee. So, spellers, congratulations. Great job. Now, if you would, follow Jaden's going to lead, and if you'll go and get a chance to shake everybody's hand. Come on through, Chris Lay. Ellie, come on through. Parents, want to take pictures?
I want to tell the crowd that this young lady's daddy was a student at Orange High School on a skateboard years ago.
Congratulations. Congratulations. I'll see you in March. I'll be there watching you.
Okay, so students who come with me and families, now we're going to get the next group to come on in. We'll be right back.
Thank you, good night.
Thank you. See you soon. Thank you.
serious young people.
Yeah, but you know, and that has to be so hard because those lights are so bright and you just in the middle of, and I just worry, I get so stressed for them. I really do.
That's good, you're taking the stress
I
out.
really do.
I remember talking to you before last year, like, I'm sorry.
I know.
It's worse than the parents. My daughter was in this competition a few years ago. It was hard. It was hard. It's a great, Regional B is a lot of fun. All right, first of all, Leo Maury. Leo, will you come on up here, please? Yes, sir. Come stand right here. If you would. Thank you, Leo. Leo is in the 4th grade at Hillsborough Elementary, and he is their spelling champion. Let's see.
Love it, Leo.
He was done.
Good job. From New Hope, she's not here this evening, but Samantha Quaid from 5th grade. Go ahead and stay there. Get away.
Yeah, we're not-
There's more. There's more. But wait. Samantha Quaid was not able to be here this evening, but we want to recognize her at 5th grade at New Hope. Gavin Tant. Gavin, come on up here. Gavin's in the 5th grade at Pathways Elementary. And Gavin's mother was an Orange County Spelling Bee champion. So raising the
All
That
of
was
the
great.
bells.
Yes, exactly.
Legacy.
Also, from A.L. Standback, 8th grader, Caroline Park. This is Caroline's second return. This is her return. She's won twice.
All right.
Caroline, if you want to come on over here on this side. I didn't tell you, that's my. And finally, also C.W. Stanford, Gianna Tiani is 8th grade. She's unable to be here. And then finally, from Gravelly Hill, Jed Brandt, 7th grader. This is his 2nd year doing this. Okay, come on up here. All right. So March the 7th at Riverside High School. Invite you to come. Starts at 8:45. These students will be representing Orange County schools. We're just really proud of them and excited for them to represent our school system. So let's give them a hand. All right, Caroline, you'll walk and shake everybody's hand. And then Gavin, come behind me. Leo, come behind me. And parents, let me duck out of the way if you want to take a picture.
Very proud.
Duck out of the way.
Probably not. Congratulations. Congratulations, such a good. Congratulations.
Congratulations, now you can go sit down. I want to get out of here.
All right.
So I got one more word to spell for you.
Oh.
RETIRING.
Oh, no.
I'll be doing that in June,
No.
and this has been one of my favorite things to do.
Oh, wow.
I just appreciate your support. I appreciate Tara Hewitt for starting this, and I've just loved every minute of it. So, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You spellers can go now if you want to.
Yes.
Stay for the meeting if you want.
Yeah, you can stay, but you have school tomorrow.
Don't have to stay.
Congratulations.
Bye.
Good job.
Wow, I hate to leave him down.
Yeah, hey.
He is good. Bye.
Bye. Have a good night.
All right, so, not sure if everyone is aware, but this week is National Bus Driver Appreciation Week. The theme of this year's event is Love the Bus. We love the bus, but we also love the bus drivers. And so today we want to recognize one of our bus drivers, Mr. Paul Klingman, for being an outstanding professional. So Mr. Klingman, would you, could you make your way up?
Maybe.
Coming in front of you. And joining him is our acting Director of Transportation, Ms. Katina McCulley. And so let me tell you a little bit about Mr. Klingman, who has been a driver for us for 2 years. And so there was a situation about a week or so ago that came to my attention, and I said, this is the kind of professional who exemplifies what it means to be an outstanding bus driver. And what better time to recognize him than Bus Driver Appreciation Week. So there was a student at Cedar Ridge High School who didn't have a key to get in his house when Mr. Klingman arrived at his stop. Mr. Klingman didn't feel comfortable leaving the student out in the cold because the student said it would be a while before his mom got home. Mr. Klingman contacted the bus manager to make him aware of the situation. The bus manager asked for the student's contact number so that he could call his mom. The mom agreed to pick up her son at Cedar Ridge High School. When they arrived back at the school, Mr. Klingman and the bus manager stayed with the student until his mom arrived, and that wasn't until around 6:30 p.m.
Oh, wow.
And so on behalf of the school district, the school board, we just want to thank you, Mr. Klingman, for being such a wonderful professional and putting our students' needs first.
Yes.
We thank you so much for exemplifying the type of employee that we seek to have throughout this district. So on behalf of the board, I want to present you with this certificate, and it reads, Certificate of Appreciation awarded to Paul Klingman for being an outstanding professional. We couldn't do it without you. Awarded this 10th of February, 2020. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you have a speech for us?
Just a few words.
Okay.
It was nice to see the students in here tonight, because I see 100+ of them a day. And one of those students, ALS student, was one of mine. I dropped her off about 2 or 3 hours ago. Chairman Atherton and board, Superintendent Felder, Director Cunningham Brown, Acting Director McCauley, thank you. Fellow OCS colleagues and my wife Tony.
All right.
We get up at 4:40 in the morning.
Oh, wow.
She brings me coffee, cold coffee. I drink cold coffee in the morning because I need it. I share this recognition with all the employees of the transportation department. So on the agenda it says bus driver. Please, when you get a chance, change that to say transportation department, because all of us in the transportation department would have done what I've done under our leadership that we have. So I share it with the student transporters, the administrators, the garage staff, because I was doing what I was trained to do. And the student did need us, and Miss Wanda Bain, she was the bus manager at the time on the radio, and she surprised me. She showed up there at Cedar Ridge when I was there with the student. And then his mom did come around 6:30. So in the bus department, the transportation department, I should say, we are adopting an expectation of excellence at this time, renewed expectation of excellence. And I appreciate the opportunity to contribute to the success of the department in the leadership under Acting Director McCauley. And again, I share this with all the employees there. And I have acknowledged Miss Wanda Bain, because she did the same thing. She came there and spent her time and energy there. So thank you for this recognition, for the opportunity to contribute to the success of the transportation department and to your success as Orange County schools. And I appreciate the opportunity to contribute. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
All right. few more recognitions. And so as you all know, Orange County School is a learning organization. We are fortunate to have a board that exemplifies this mindset. Tonight, 3 board members are receiving a certificate of merit from the North Carolina School Board Association for successfully completing a school board training during the 2018-2019 school year. And so, the certificate reads, the North Carolina School Boards Association Academy for School Board Boardmanship, that's a mouthful, presents this certificate of merit to, and this one reads, Sarah Smiley, Orange County Schools Board of Education for successful completion of school board training during the 2018-2019 academy year. And it's signed by Mr. Dr. Dunlap, Executive Director. So, Mrs. Smiley. Congratulations.
Thank you. My pleasure.
And the next one goes to Mrs. Hillary McKenzie. Come on down. Congratulations, you're so welcome. And then last but not least, Mr. Will Atherton. Here you go.
All right. We are now to the agenda adoption. Do we have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. We have no public comments tonight. We'll start with the board reports. We'll start with you, Hillary.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to start by acknowledging Black History Month. And at this time, I think it's really important to think about our history of segregation in this county, a troubled story of integration, and the profound effect that racial division has had and still has on Orange County schools. While I'm hopeful we're going to be passing a resolution about Black History Month tonight, words on paper don't create better outcomes for our students by themselves. A willingness to discuss difficult issues such as systemic barriers, why programs of choice can create segregated learning communities, and a commitment to breaking down systemic injustices, however, are critically important in how we'll be able to move forward as a district. To that same end, we have several seats opening up on the school board that will be decided in the March 3rd primary, and I just hope everyone will get to know our candidates who are running and make sure no matter who you're voting for, you get out and vote. That's it for tonight.
Thank you. Dr. Halkiotis?
Yeah, I just wanted to point out that I was really impressed with the 25th anniversary MLK banquet this year that was held in Burlington. I've attended these banquets for 25 years, and this is the first time, I believe, it was held out of county and not in a church. And it was a grand affair, to say the least. It was wonderful, a wonderful moment with lots of wonderful people. I also wanted to commend Dr. Felder this evening, because every time I turn on my smartphone, there seems to be an update on some breaking news. I feel like I'm tuned into CNN. And I appreciate the fact that, and I will say this from my vantage point of 47 years, she has been producing the best board notification system that I ever recall. And I appreciate that. You're keeping us posted on what's going on, things we should know, no surprises, and I think you need to be commended for that. So thereby I am singularly commending you for that. I want to thank Chair Atherton for your work in bringing about the luncheon of appreciation for the school resource officers. There was only one hitch with the whole thing. I had to be very careful opening up those little candy bags you had, because they would tear very easily. So I learned my lesson after tearing the first two. But the resource officers and the sheriff thoroughly appreciated all of that. And the special thanks goes out to the Orange High School FFA and teachers, and the Cedar Ridge Ag teacher, to the Farm Bureau, and all of their funding of that operation, and it was just, I thought, a very nice thing to do. This past Saturday, I was at the Schley Grange Hall for the FFA breakfast. And once again, the country ham was delicious. I drank water for the next 48 hours because it makes me thirsty. Once again, the Orange High Ag alumni deserve a lot of credit for the support they give their organization. The last thing I'm gonna request is, don't want the answer tonight, but I wanna know, I would like to see a future agenda topic before I leave this board in June. I would like to know from our attorney, who has the authority to undo a program that received school board approval years ago, and then over a period of years, it's revealed that those efforts that the school board passed a resolution of approval on suddenly disappeared, and either the administration back then, this has nothing to do with Dr. Feldman, she's only been here 55, 60 days. And I'm particularly talking about years ago, the school board, there was only one high school at the time, two junior highs. The decision was made to put metal detectors for all football games and basketball games. School violence was just beginning back then, and Orange County Schools took a positive step. And I was there the first night metal detectors were in place at Orange High School, and I witnessed for myself at least 10 or 15 people. Sheriff Pendergrass was there that night too. Once they saw the metal detectors in operation, they turned around and went back to their cars. Suddenly, all of that seemed to have dissipated over the last few years. I asked the former superintendent, who made the decision to stop using metal detectors, which is common practice in high schools, in junior high school, middle schools across the country. And I was told, and several of you were present when I asked this question, that it was costly, staff didn't want to do it anymore, and et cetera, et cetera. So I want to know who has the authority to undo what a school board demanded that would be done many years earlier. I'm not a lawyer, but I'm of the opinion that the only group that can undo what the board did is a future board. If a future board decides they don't want to do it anymore, then fine. There were shootings on high school campuses at football events and basketball games in the last 6 months across the country. There were 2 events in North Carolina. And I just wanted to put this on the table because I don't want, we had a shooting at Orange High School, if you remember, a few years back. There was an active shooter. The only reason it ended without serious casualties to anybody, because we had, and still have at this time, 2 retired highway patrolmen who serve as driver's ed teachers. And it was retired patrolman LeBlanc who tackled the shooter when his gun jammed. I'm just putting that out there because school violence seems to be a common thing these days. It's a very tragic thing. We've done so many wonderful things in enhancing the security of our buildings. None of us can get into a building now unless you push the buzzer. They see who you are. And I've noticed, I think we've installed a camera here at the central office outside too. I just noticed this tonight. This is how serious we need to take security, but I see this as a lapse in maintaining security at our most heavily populated sporting events. So I don't want the answer tonight, but I want to know who can undo what a school board said was going to be the plan years ago. I don't believe either a superintendent, a director of services, or a coach or an athletic director has that within their realm of authority. So I'm just putting it out there just to be on the record. Thank you.
Ms. Vaughn?
I also enjoyed the 25th anniversary MLK banquet. That was fantastic, as well as the march. Good events. The SRO lunch, and also went to the Career and Technical Education Fall Recognition Ceremony. So that was at Standback a week ago maybe, and the auditorium was just full of students who had achieved different certifications and who had won national, who had gone to national, you know, some of the FFA students had gone to nationals, and it was just really great to be with all those families, really good energy. And
Thank you. Mr. Roberts?
I'll start where we did the bus driver update this week. As a parent, I appreciated the rapid updates during the weather this past weekend on communicating to the parents that we were gonna have an early release, and then when it turned out that we were gonna delay the actual release or pickup of students, I received what I considered very appropriate notification. And it actually turned out that in my particular case, the students were in the hallways because the school was alerted to a potential hurricane alert, and I appreciate that. The next one is today, because I had a misunderstanding on what dropping seeds was. This is a push out to Orange County Commissioners. I was under impression that maybe we were gonna be putting seeds at some other schools. So I actually went to a school today and took pictures next to our soccer.com, where they have basically taken over the soccer field next to Gravelly Hill. And the county commissioners need to come in and help us on the erosion at that school, because they have inadequate parking. It's not a school issue. And it's not only just with soccer.com, it's with their athletic department. The erosion of red mud onto our sidewalks, or we're carrying mud into the school, is basically unacceptable. We have parents parking in what should be grass areas, to the point the school has actually put up red safety cones to keep people from parking into it. So I challenge the county commissioners to take some of the money that they're leasing that soccer field from and help us on getting non-erosion grass parked there. And the last one, it seems like that a lot of us had some opportunities to have some association with the FFA this past week. And I had also had an opportunity, because I received a text from my wife as I was getting a call from one of the local businesses in Eflin that a small pig had escaped from a transport truck. And two of the pigs had escaped, and one of them they couldn't catch, but they finally caught it, and they called my wife, and while the Petromark was calling, I received a text to pick up the pig. I had the opportunity to drop the piglet off at the FFA department this past week, and I was so impressed with their livestock side of it, and actually got to see some of the emails of some of the students who were actually taking the piglet home to take care of it until it's big enough to put in with the other two large pigs. She's rebuilding that program, and she needs to get the support. I thought she was the student, though, I will tell you that. She looked young, but I'm getting older. But it was fun. I was very impressed with the teacher and the students, particularly the students. So, thank you.
Ms. Stevens?
Yes, young ladies from the Daily Tar Heels, this is really interesting stuff, Smile with the Pigs. So I enjoyed the brisk walk with Hillsborough Elementary, on the walk to school. It was brisk, but I got my steps in on January the 27th. That was a good day. Thank you for the opportunity to do that, and to visit with students and parents. And I attended our annual SRO appreciation. I always enjoy attending that event that we give for our SROs. We did miss it this past spring, but I'm glad that we got back to it. I attended my budget meeting, and I also attended the National School Board Association Equity Symposium and the 2020 Advocacy Institute. And the legislative priorities for the 116th Congress was given to us, but I won't go through all of them, but it's all of the things that we're talking about. Safety, we're talking about infrastructure, all of that. At the end of the Advocacy Institute, designated attendees from throughout the United States, I went to Capitol Hill, and I was very fortunate enough to lead North Carolina's discussion with Richard Burr and Tom Tillis. And I will say, there was something very illuminating that was picked up there regarding, internet, that within 12, there was talk about internet in the rural areas. Burr said within 12 months, it would be everywhere. There's something on the horizon, and it was fresh off the presses or such, and that's like, we'd never heard about, rural, communities getting internet, and he said within 12 months it's not gonna happen. He's in talks with a company. And they're going to Capitol, they're on Capitol Hill after our visit. And that wasn't even, I guess he felt like he needed to give us something, because all of our ask, you know, I talked about school safety, and I don't think we're gonna get, all of our ask will be fulfilled, but I didn't expect that it would be. And last week I attended, no, that was week before last week I was in DC. I attended the policy conference, and I had the opportunity to hear 2 more candidates that's running for state superintendent. And the reason, many of you all know, we saw some candidates when we were at our state convention, and 2 more candidates filed after that convention. So our school board association felt that they need to be given an opportunity. So I listened to them. And in my role as the community liaison for UNC Hospital, you all will be like, the Tower 2 design is complete, and the construction barriers should be up right now, and the trailers are gonna move in this week. And the goal is to wrap up and have the Tower 2 completed by 2021 over at UNC. And the emergency department is expanding from 10 rooms to 15. 2 of the rooms will be added on finished next week. So we're really growing in Hillsborough, and the hospital is growing as well. And I served as the Southeast Region's representative to the National Nominating Committee, and I'm sharing this. It was a very good opportunity for me. But you know, when I went in to the room, before entering the room, I had to sign an ethics form and give up my cell phone. And that was because it's very unfortunate that school board members can't be trusted to keep their mouths shut. And it was very sensitive information, and so I was there for 7 hours without a cell phone. Well, we got a comfort break. We could go to the bowl and pick up our phone to see if there was an emergency. But it's very sensitive information, and I guess we all couldn't be trusted not to text it out, because that's what happened last year. Someone sent out the information to the individuals before the national president was able to say, you're unsuccessful, you're successful. And so they confiscated our phones for 7 hours. But I really appreciated the opportunity to go and serve, and I learned a lot. Thanks a lot.
Okay.
Mr. Wayne.
I, as most of you, actually attended the board equity training in Durham. My MLK Day of Service was actually spent in Durham, feeding the homeless at the Durham Rescue Mission breakfast, so I actually enjoyed that. And want to thank you, Dr. Felder, for all the updates that you've been giving us on the weather the last few weeks, and I'm thankful for it, and a lot of parents that I've actually spoken with have appreciated the same thing, so thank you.
All right, so first I wanted to thank Dr. Keeling for the racial equity training. It was excellent and very insightful, and all the board attendants. I attended the Listen and Learn with Eflin Cheeks with the superintendent and staff. It was excellent, very insightful. We had the joint board meeting with Chapel Hill. I'd like to thank all board members for helping and having that discussion. Very historic. I did attend as well the Northern Orange Black and Silver Gala. It was very nice and well attended. I also attended the march and the commemorative program. I wanted to thank Dr. Felder for representing the district during that time. Also, Dr. Rainey gave me this to give to you,
Oh, did
so we
she?
can keep
Oh,
here
how
in
kind.
the district
Oh, thank
to
you. Yep.
remember the celebration.
Will.
Let's see, for the lunch SRO, I just wanted to thank everyone, the Farm Bureau for their generous donation, the FFA, our ag teachers from both schools, Shannon Braxton and Purcell, all the desserts that were donated. We didn't have any that were made from a store. All the school board members for attending and helping to serve, even if the Orange County News of Orange didn't recognize y'all, I'm not sure why, but I just wanted to say thank you for all of that. The principals and all the students that came and served was a wonderful event, and also thank you to all the students that took the time to write thank you notes. That was the thing that I've heard the most about, was the SROs and the sheriffs being able to open that up and see the students thank them, either graphically or with words. Walk to school day, I was there with Ms. Stevens. It was a very brisk morning and well attended. The budget committee meeting I attended as well, lots of good discussion in there on several items, including the pre-K discussion. I met with the Honorable Chief Justice Judge Buckner. I'm still on my journey to understanding more about the juvenile systems and how the school plays in that, and what are the things we're doing, what are they doing, just to kind of understand that whole system. I attended the Awakening Darkroom photo show. Amazingly talented, passionate students. I also found out that they had grants that allowed them to not have to buy any supplies, so the students didn't have to take anything out of pocket. Just amazing event. Swim for Charlie, just wow. Fantastic planning from the start to the finish. Dr. Felder, I just want to thank you and the staff for, and the principals working through the details. I was there when the first kids arrived. I wasn't aware of this, but they took the time to find out which students did not have swimsuits. They purchased them. They found out which kids would not have towels, purchased them. So when the students arrived, all they needed was smiles, and there were plenty of them. It's just a wonderful thing that we've done with the community, and I'm looking forward to us expanding that. The World Read Aloud Day at Pathways, I attended that with Dr. Felder. It was very engaging readers. That definitely was a lot of imaginations and discussions. Thoroughly enjoyed that. The FFA breakfast, students, parents, the community, the alumni did such a great job raising money, because all of the events they do, they have to raise their own money. It was great to see all that support. I wanted to also acknowledge, last week was the National School Counseling Week, and also wanted to acknowledge Abby Kenley, is that right? From New Hope Elementary as the Orange County Counseling of the Year recipient. On a side note, I wanted to let the board know that I'm still talking to Chapel Hill. The last edit that y'all saw to the joint email will be going out hopefully tonight. I will copy y'all as a joint message to the Board of County Commissioners for their meeting tomorrow on the discussion of SAFO and pre-K. One item that's come up in social media, and I do want to bring this up here. There's been a concern raised about lunch shaming and our policy to have alternate meals. I definitely will be bringing this into our policy meeting. I will request that the budget committee review how we can don't treat kids differently, and possibly look at universal lunch as an alternate. But I was not aware of this specific practice, but I think we can address it somehow. In that same area, I wanted to thank Eflin Trash Service for eliminating all student debt at Eflin Cheeks. They did this, they posted it on Facebook. You know, this is where they just went in and asked how many students had debt and just paid them all out. This is a very small company that is helping out with our kids. Also, I mentioned at last meeting, thanking everyone that's been donating to the schools. If you look on our consent agenda, last week and this week, there are lots of families and anonymous donations that have stepped up to help pay these debts, so there are no debts in our schools for these lunches. So thank you, and if you can, please donate to help with these debts. Just a few reminders. So board, tomorrow's meeting, there is a county commissioners meeting. It is a work session, so there's no comments. The SAFO and pre-K is the first item on the agenda. So if you're able to attend, it would be great. I'm planning on attending, especially since this is one of our areas that we do know we want to expand pre-K. The board work session this month, again, will be with the Equity Task Force, and we'll be covering lots of topics. It will be moved to
Cedar Ridge High School.
for open discussions, talking about next steps and others. Our joint session with the county is on February 25th. We will be talking more as we get closer about, you know, how do we present, how do we discuss all the items we've discussed in our past meetings about the topics. So I do plan on sharing once I hear more from Chapel Hill. And the last item is I forwarded out a invitation to Boomerang's open house. It just happens to be on top of the county's meeting, but it's earlier, so there's time to go see the Hillsborough facility. And that's all for me.
Oh, Chair Atherton, you know,
Sure.
also on the 25th, I regret that the FFA ham dinner is on top of that.
It's happened. That's happened before.
Mm.
It has,
Yeah,
that's why we need a master calendar for all of this stuff.
I might go to the ham dinner.
Yeah, that joint meeting was.
Bring
gonna
water.
take a long time. Yeah,
I know, I was
exactly. All right. Okay, with that, Superintendent?
Thank you, Mr. Atherton. So just a couple of items. One, I'd like to bring the artwork that is behind us to your attention. I'm sure you all know that the arts matter. The arts don't just develop a child's creativity. It also develops students' ability to learn as they spill over into academic achievement. In fact, there's research, a recent study in fact, by the Americans for Arts states that young people who participate regularly in the arts are 4 times more likely to be recognized for academic achievement. So these paintings behind us are by first graders at New Hope Elementary in the style of artist Paul Lee. Not sure who he is, but I know the students know who he is. So I'm gonna take a visit over to New Hope and they'll tell me all about him. Their art teacher is Sarah Finman Jones. The essential standards that the children were working on for visual arts include classifying art into categories such as landscapes, cityscapes, seascapes, portraits, and still life, and understand the characteristics of the principles of design. So I wanted to note the artwork. Since my arrival, we've always had wonderful artwork posted, and I said we need to highlight the students' work.
Thank
And
you.
so I'm grateful for all the wonderful artwork and opportunities in the arts that we provide our students. Also want to mention, again, about the listen and learns, and so we know that every student deserves access to an excellent education, and Orange County Schools is committed to achieving that goal. Our vision is a simple one. We want to hear from everyone in our community to inform the strategic planning process, which will be our roadmap for the next 3 to 5 years. We need to hear from everyone. I cannot emphasize that enough. We want to hear from our families, from our staff, our students, and community members. And as Mr. Atherton said, the first Listen and Learn, which was held at Eflin Cheeks on January 16th, seems like such a long time ago, was just wonderful. And I cannot say enough to the staff and thanking them, many of whom are here, for their support, because it's a team effort. This is not a one-woman show. We work together, and it was a wonderful opportunity. And so if you missed that one, have no fear, because you have 11 more opportunities. We have to reschedule the one that was was to be held at Cedar Ridge on Thursday. Yes, it was a combination of Cedar Ridge and Grady Brown coming together. But it's already rescheduled, and we'll get that date out. I believe it's March 17th. Don't hold me to that, but I'm seeing heads nod. It's the 17th, there's no turning back. So March 17th for that one. But there are 4 additional ones this month. And so on February 13th, that's this week, Thursday, Orange High School. February 18th, CW Stanford Middle School. February 25th, Gravely Hill Middle School, and February 27th, AL Standback. Again, lots of opportunities, and if you're not able to participate in person, there are ways to give us feedback online. There's a survey posted, and I want to thank everyone who's been using that online tool, and there are other ways, using comment cards, et cetera, to give us your feedback. And again, we want to hear from everyone, as our goal is to fully achieve the goal of an excellent, equitable education for all students. And so these are opportunities where we invite open, honest conversation, and that if the first one is anything like the next 11 will be, folks have not been shy about sharing their thoughts around what's working in the district, sharing where there are challenges, as well as their recommendations for improvement. And again, all of this information will be leveraged to help develop the next strategic planning process. So thank you, and I look forward to seeing all of you at one of the upcoming Listen and Learns. Thank you.
All right. Next, we have the consent agenda. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Do we have a second? All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, consent is approved. All right, next item we have is the district activities and resource for Native Americans.
Something happened with the upload of the PowerPoint, but I emailed it to everyone.
You did, I saw it.
So, I apologize.
Appreciate
you.
your plan B.
Thank you.
I'm gonna use one and then I'll give it to you.
No, 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 no,
I
no, no, no.
see
I got it
It's-
online, we're fine.
Thank you.
Sure?
All good, yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening.
The board asked for information about the activities in Orange County Schools in recognition of Black History Month. I'll be presenting this information tonight. Also want to point out that in addition to Black History Month, Orange County Schools has celebrated the history and contributions of Hispanic Americans and Native Americans during their Heritage Months. So I want to take some time tonight to present the ways that we recognize, celebrate, and expose students and staff to the diverse cultures within our schools, community, and nation. Hispanic American Heritage Month was from September 15th to October 15th of 2019. November is Native American Heritage Month, and February is Black History Month. During these Heritage Months, I have shared an equity newsletter with leadership and principals and asked them to forward it on to their staff. The newsletters, which I have just given everyone a copy of, except for but it is also uploaded to Assembly for the public, contains information and resources of ways to recognize and raise awareness about the people of color who are represented that month. So for Hispanic Heritage Month, I reached out to some of our Orange County School leadership and staff who identify as Latinx, specifically Sandra Blefko, who is our ESL Family Outreach Coordinator, and Wanda Rittenhouse, who is a CTE teacher at Partnership Academy. And I asked them how they wanted their culture to be recognized. I recently had a birthday this past month. this past weekends, and people kept asking me, how do you wanna celebrate your birthday? So nobody just takes your birthday from you and tells you how to celebrate. And so, in the same way, I reached out to them to ask them how did they wanna see their, culture and history recognized. Some of the suggestions that they had were for principals to post on social media about Hispanic celebrities, authors, sports players, etc., to incorporate such countries as Mexico, Colombia, El Salvador, and Spain, to have morning trivia on various topics, and to include folklore and dances. So in the September newsletter, that September-October newsletter, in addition to providing the link to the National Hispanic Heritage Month website, which is filled with resources for teachers, I also included information on flamenco dance performance. So I did that because they said to highlight dance as well, so I did so for them. On the slide, you will see some of the ways that our schools recognize Hispanic Heritage Month. Cameron Park hosted their first and what will now be their annual Hispanic Heritage Festival. The event was a culmination of activities and lessons that took place throughout the month. They partnered with local Hispanic-owned businesses, and over 600 Cameron Park students, families, and stakeholders were in attendance. Students in second grade presented a traditional Peruvian dance, which was choreographed by 2 professional Peruvian dancers. Third, fourth, and fifth grade students set up displays and presented research projects. Third graders presented facts about Spain, fourth graders presented on famous Hispanic personalities, and fifth graders shared their research on a self-selected Spanish-speaking country. A professional dance troupe brought the evening to a close with colorful and lively Mexican dances. For Native American Heritage Month, the November newsletter features, the middle 2 pages, historically accurate classroom resources and information about Native Americans. This information was compiled by Kara Stewart, who is a literacy coach at Eflin Cheeks and a member of the Saponi tribe. The information she provided included a slide deck that could be shown to students as part of a morning show or morning news or morning announcements. There was also information for staff to obtain CEUs from the North Carolina Department of Public Instruction's self-paced course entitled Culturally Responsive Teaching About American Indians. So again, I tried to incorporate staff who represent that culture and ask them to help to put the newsletter together. What information do they want for the staff to know about? At our leadership team meeting in November, we paused in silent recognition of Native American people on whose land we stand. Here at 200 East King Street, we are on the lands of Eno, Catawba, and Shakori tribes. I put on here a link where it says Native Land. You can go to that website and put in an address, or you can download their app and it will locate where you are when you open it, and it will tell you which indigenous land you're standing on. And then I've also highlighted some of the ways that schools have recognized Native American Heritage Month. So this month's newsletter has a number of resources for staff as well as for parents, since it is posted on Assembly for the public to be able to access to learn more about the history of Black Americans. One of the suggestions from principals was to have a place where all the principals could share ideas, resources, and activities of how schools are recognizing Heritage Months. So in this month's newsletter, I have featured the ways that schools are celebrating Black History Month. And on the slide is the same as on the chart in the newsletter. But these are some of the ways that our schools are celebrating. So for example, we have students who are writing their own I Have a Dream speech, and they're incorporating how they want to help change the world for the better, or what jobs they would like to have in the future that would make a positive impact on the world. We have students who are leading discussions that focus on overcoming barriers and perseverance, and they're doing that based on a growth mindset model, but they're centering the narratives of Black Americans in those discussions and having discussions about why it's important to take the time to have such discussions. I also attended a read aloud at Pathways Elementary, and I read the book Sulwe, which is by Lupita Nyong'o, and that is her. If anyone saw Black Panther, she is in that movie. Yeah. The kids remembered her. They remembered her name and everything, and I had watched it the night before, so I could tell them, and I was like, I don't remember. One of the little boys was like, so-and-so. I don't know if he was right or not, but I was like, okay, you right, good for you. So, read this. It is also illustrated by Vashti Harrison, so you have Black author. The book discusses issues that are relevant not only to Black students, but to all students, while presenting beautifully illustrated mirror representations for Black students. So this is a great book that can be used throughout the year to affirm the experience of students of color. So I'll let you pass it around and take a look at it. So that's the direction that we want to head into, finding ways to incorporate and affirm students throughout the year. As I stated in the newsletter for this month, back in 1926, Dr. Carter G. Woodson initiated Negro History Week, which later became Black History Month. But he hoped for the day when the need to set aside time to recognize Black Americans would not be necessary. The recognition of heritage months, such as Hispanic American Heritage Month, Native American Heritage Month, Black History Month, and Asian Pacific American Heritage Month, which is coming up in May, are important. But our Orange High School Student Equity Team, who spoke last month, challenged us to move towards the inclusion of the history, narrative, and voices of people of color as part of our everyday curriculum. And in response, we will strive to elevate those voices and honor the hope of Dr. Carter G. Woodson to move beyond monthly highlights and toward culturally relevant and affirming environments that incorporate Black history, Hispanic history, Native American history, and Asian Pacific American history as part of American history, 365, 24/7. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions?
Any questions?
Comments?
Comments, Dr. H?
Just a comment, I'm just really impressed with what you've been doing. The last portion you brought up with respect to what the kids would like to see, I think is critically important, because back in the old days, it was the textbook manufacturers that controlled what was being taught. It was the state textbook commission that ordered and told you what books you could have access to. It was a very tightly knit group. And the first time that a textbook came out, U.S. history through the eyes of the oppressed, there was outrage on the part of some people that, why would you be interested in listening to foreigners telling you about what the history of the United States is? Well, the history of the United States is about foreigners, okay? So I think this is a wonderful endeavor. Are you gonna be utilizing existing software stuff that's already out there, National Geographic, the History Channel, et cetera, to bring this together?
So what the students were asking for are for courses specifically related to
I know, that's why I'm
history.
asking this.
Right, so there is curriculum that is already out there, like there's online courses, but we want our students to be able to have the chance to meet together. So we'll probably use the same curriculum that the state has, but we're just gonna put it in place.
I'm asking that because if you go back and Brenda McCormick is still working for the Orange County School System. And she worked closely with Doris Hayes, who passed away unfortunately a couple of years ago. But Doris Hayes was teaching a history on Black history at Orange High School back in the mid-70s.
Wow.
So this is not something new. This is another one of those things that was course approved by the Board of Education and then lapsed into obscurity over the years. So there's a lot of rich material that's been put together out there. And it would be good to capture this from people while they're still alive and can tell you what went on in the past. So what the kids are asking for has been done before, it's been done successfully, and they're worth textbooks. And there used to be an old room up at Orange High School somewhere in the subterranean part of B Wing where they kept all the old books, and some of those books may still be up there. Somebody needs to go investigate.
Thank you.
Sarah?
Well, I just wanted to say, I think it's great, everything that you've been doing. I think it's great that you involve staff who identify with the communities that are being celebrated each of those months. And the thought I had as you were saying that was, just to throw it out there as a like back of the closet idea, is how cool it would be if students had the opportunity to work with those teachers, right? And like help develop some of those ideas as like sort of an extension, or I'm sure that there must be some standards there in involving sort of like helping develop like curriculum for other students and stuff, that if kids of a certain identity could like be a part of creating that, how cool that would be. So sort of a way for them too to like make those adult connections, you know, so.
You just gave me an idea, wait till next year.
Any other comments? So, Dr. Ganley, I just wanted to say too, thank you for all the work you're doing. We are definitely seeing some movement, which is a very positive thing. Just like Ms. Smiley mentioned, I heard about a program where at Cedar Ridge, I think it's called the Dreamers Program, where the students go across to Grady Brown and actually teach lessons. And I think this is a good opportunity to have people do that. We have a program that does that in other ways. I think this would be a good way to expand it, where we have the older kids showing how important this is to the younger kids, and really getting the community involved. Just a thought.
No, that's good, thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, budget calendar update.
You're so kind, thank you.
There we go, I know. And it's up.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Dr. Felder and I tonight have a budget update for you where we're going to share some recommended goals and priorities that we are looking at as we begin to develop the superintendent's recommended budget for the 2020-2021 school year. Tonight, we will share with you the recommended goals and priorities for the upcoming 2021 school year. First, we will continue the implementation of strategies that promote equity in and throughout Orange County schools. We will continue to implement strategies that establish and support success for every student in our schools. We will improve outcomes for all students by focusing on literacy, climate and culture, and stakeholder engagement, especially our underrepresented subgroups with the most significant achievement gaps, and these are our students of color, economically challenged, and students with disabilities. We will continue working to ensure every student has available what they need to succeed. We will recommend exploring options to expand pre-K opportunities, and we will recommend exploring opportunities to bolster bus driver recruitment and retention, as well as enhancing employee benefit options.
Alrighty, so over the past few months, I've had numerous opportunities to visit schools, and I can tell you from my firsthand experience that staff in the schools, our administrators and teachers are working really, really hard, and there are a lot of great things happening in our schools. But as I review data, both quantitative data and qualitative data, it's become apparent that there are some areas that we really need to hunker in on, double down on, if we want to move the needle on student achievement, and I know that's something we all want to do. And so, the data is telling us that we need to focus in 3 areas: literacy, culture and climate, and stakeholder engagement. And we need to focus on these areas through the lens of equity. So equity and the data continue to drive the work so that all students receive what they need to achieve. But we need to double down in these 3 areas. The vehicle to get us there would be the goals that we have in our current strategic plan. And there are 5 of them, and they're listed here. And so now I'm going to spend a little bit of time speaking about each of these 3 foci. So focus number 1 would be literacy. And what do we know about literacy? Literacy is a civil right. If all of us were to just stop for a second and think about what would our lives be like if we couldn't read, if we couldn't write, if we couldn't speak, if we didn't know how to listen well, and think critically. How would that impact us? I know for me, I would not be sitting in that seat. And so to be able to engage effectively in this society, it is no longer optional. We must ensure that our students are literate. And so, literacy is also more than just a skill, a habit, or understanding. It is a gateway to opportunity. And some would say not just a gateway, it can be a gatekeeper to opportunity. And we know that literacy should not be viewed as a subject to be taught, rather as, again, a civil right that we must, and I cannot underscore that enough, must provide to our children. And so we know from the research that there's a high cost to low literacy. The Annie E. Casey Foundation informs us that 9 out of 10 high school dropouts struggle to read in 3rd grade. We know that prisons are built based on 3rd grade reading. When I first heard that, I just couldn't imagine that a prison gets built based on data from 3rd grade reading, but it's true. We also know that youth who fail to complete high school by age 20 are 7 times more likely to be persistently poor. How will they be able to take care of themselves or their families if they're constantly in that state? We also know the United States Department of Justice tells us that 2/3 of all youth in the juvenile court system couldn't read in 4th grade. So that early reading is critical. And last but not least, the National Commission on Writing tells us that $3.1 billion are spent annually to improve the literacy skills of entry-level workers. I don't know about all of you, well, I think I do. I'm sure these statistics are sobering. And they just speak to and emphasize why we have to focus on literacy. So when we think about today's literacy context, so let's bring it home. What does it mean for participation in civic life and accessing social supports? What does it mean for preparation for higher ed? And what does it mean for the workplace demands and challenges? Well, with regards to civic life, civic participation, accessing and navigating the healthcare system. So great to know that Hillsborough's hospital system is expanding, but what good will it do you if you don't know how to navigate it?
That's right.
And interfacing with school systems require the ability to read and understand information. We know that in order to be prepared for higher education, that the average college coursework requires 80 pages of independent reading per week. And up to 60% of community college freshmen are assigned to remedial reading courses. We also know that the workplace demands and challenges tell us that the 21st century workers need to clearly communicate in speech and in writing with a wide variety of audiences and efficiently manage the abundant information that defines this digital age in which we live. We also know that business leaders report a steady decline in workplace literacy skills, which has led to that $3.1 billion. Just think about how those money could be spent in other ways instead of bolstering the entry-level workers' literacy skills. So when we look at the district's data, and this is taken from DPI's website for 2018, 2019, end of grade English language arts reading performance, grades 3 to 8. And you look at Orange County's data and the state of North Carolina. What do you notice? And let me just inform you, if you're not aware, that levels 1 and 2 equal not proficient. Level 3 on grade level, levels 4 and 5 represent students who are college and career ready.
They're about consistent. They're almost consistent.
And
Any other noticings?
4 out of 10 of our students are not reading on grade level.
Mhm.
Right.
4 out of 10. And this is grade 3 to 8. Yeah. And then when we disaggregate the data, so again, 45% 3 to 8, not sufficient per the previous slide, but when we disaggregate the data based on race, based on services provided, socioeconomic status, what do you notice?
Very disproportionate.
Yeah.
Yeah, very
Students are
good.
disproportionately not prepared and not able to read on their grade level.
Yep, if you are a homeless student in our district, you have a much better chance of not learning to read than learning to read. That is
Or
how
if
I
you're a
would say
student
it.
with disabilities?
Yep.
Foster
Yeah.
children,
Yep.
I mean, it's not good. I'm gonna say.
Mhm.
Right. So now let's take a look at focus number 2, and that would be culture and climate. And so, again, climate are those observable habits that characterize life in a school or in an office, while culture are the beliefs that reflect that deeper foundation of how we operate. It's based on our values, based on our beliefs, and based on our assumptions. And so how this plays out for students and staff would be social emotional learning. And so social emotional learning is the process through which children and adults understand and manage emotions, set and achieve positive goals, feel and show empathy for others, demonstrate cultural sensitivity, establish and maintain positive relationships, and make responsible decisions. And so, I know if you're looking at it from the screen, it's this depiction here is maybe hard to see, but so let me spell it out for you. So there's a little kiddo there carrying a lot of luggage. He's carrying a luggage that says homelessness, he's carrying a luggage that says hunger, and he's carrying a piece of luggage that says sickness. And he says, could someone help me with these? I'm late for math class. And unfortunately, this is the experience of too many of our children. They come to school carrying a lot of baggage, and yet we expect them to perform and do well and attend and behave. When we know that there are some adults who struggle with just one
Right.
piece of luggage. And so we have to support our students in a whole child model, not just focusing on the academics. That's important, but that's not all we have to focus on if we want them to be successful, because you can't learn well when you're carrying all that baggage. And so Maslow before Bloom. So Maslow speaks to those hierarchy of needs. Bloom sort of represents the academics, and here a teacher is saying, if my students aren't well-fed, if they don't feel safe, if, and are badly in need of hugs, they don't care where my questions land on Bloom's or the state assessment or anything else. We must meet their basic needs first. And then we also know, as eloquently stated by this teacher, research is very clear that we don't have time not to build relationships because you can't get to the academics or Bloom's without going through Maslow, students' basic needs. And so it's not a matter of should we, could we, will we, it is an absolute that we must focus on both. And so hence the idea around culture climate. We also want to ensure that we have schools and offices where families and community members feel welcomed and valued and respected. And so it's all of that. But this is how it shows up for our students. And then when we look at our data, again, taken right from the state's website, which gives us some indication about perhaps culture, climate, and that SEL component. So when we look at suspension and expulsion data, what are your noticings?
If I'm a male and I'm African American, I'm gonna get, in school, out of school, I'm gonna get suspended. That, the odds are, if I'm a female, I stand a chance of succeeding.
Yep.
So this is one that we really need to continue to do a root cause analysis on, to understand the why behind this. But as part of that work, we have to ensure that we are strengthening our efforts around social emotional learning for all students. Yes.
Could I ask, could you speak a little bit about the extremely high numbers for students with disabilities?
Can you?
Well, when they say disabilities, are we, what kind of, are we talking physically disabled, emotionally disabled?
So, my understanding is that students with disabilities covers all of that. So
Okay.
these are students who have been identified through with our screening process
All right.
as having a disability. It could be emotional, physical, it could be intellectual. There are a variety of funny businesses there. Did you want to?
She left,
Oh,
there we go.
okay.
So
These would
I'm
be
a-
students with IEPs.
Yes.
So I was assuming that they would be students with individual education plans. right?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Including 504s.
Mm,
Well,
I don't know if they fall under this category.
Okay.
Um,
Because that's a big category also, we have a lot of students involved in that.
So
reason that.
where I was going with that, if you have an IEP and there's a plan of action and it's been signed off on everybody, to me, that would historically appear to be a preemptive plan to avoid issues, provide upfront understanding and plans of action, so we wouldn't have these high numbers. I'm not asking for an immediate answer tonight, but I think it's a question that deserves a little bit more investigation. Yeah.
If I can, Dr. Fielder, going along that line, that the IEPs, that if that's included with the students with disabilities, I have children that have had that, and it was at an early age. And they still struggle. So in my mind, that is an area that we really have to look in and say, yeah, we have the IEP, and I know this is where you're coming, but we're making sure that that plan that's for that child is working. And so I think it's important that we do drill down into that.
And I do know the plans are revisited to determine whether or not it's working and if tweaks need to be made to it.
And that is happening.
Yeah.
And it's improving.
Absolutely.
But at some point, I was gonna wait but you had one slide, if you'll just go back one, the one slide, could someone help me with these? I'm waiting for math class. That is such a good slide. I'm in total agreement with the Maslow. But if I'm a fifth grader that is already a year and a half, 2 years behind, not only am I having to find out where my class is, we as society are expecting that fifth grader to catch up, to get at grade level. They have to get 2 years of work to catch up. Whereas if I'm a fifth grader and I'm already at grade level, all I have to do is just do 1 year's worth of work. So we've got to recognize that's the baggage that fifth grader is bringing in also. It's not just getting to class. I've got 2 years to catch up. I'm struggling already, but I have to do it in 1 year, but the guy I'm sitting next to or the girl I'm sitting next to, hey, I've got to do 2 years of work, they only have to do 1. So we have to figure out a way to make sure we have the resources for that student that's 2 years behind. And I was gonna come back to it.
And if I could just add, we also want to ensure that we have a very strong, providing very strong first instruction, that core instruction. Because the research and practice tell us that when we do that, that typically addresses 80 to 85% of our students. There, will be students who need more, but that more could be in terms of interventions, but it could also mean more challenged. But if we are finding that we are leaning more towards providing more interventions, the first place we need to look to find out why is in core instruction. Is that what it needs to be?
I just feel obligated to mention for people that don't know, an IEP does not imply a child has a behavioral problem.
Oh, absolutely.
Because
Yes,
it
thank you
could
for
be
pointing that
they
out.
have a speech or,
Mhm.
so I just wanted to say that
Thank
out
you.
loud
No, that's
because it wasn't said, so.
Yeah, no, thank you for that clarification, you're absolutely correct. All right, and then focus number 3 is around stakeholder engagement. And so, according to John Hattie, the effect of parental engagement over a student's school career is equivalent to adding an extra 2 or 3 years to that student's education. So we cannot underestimate stakeholder engagement. Stakeholders are those who have a stake in the school district, in its students, which means they have a personal, professional, civic, financial interest or concern in the school district. Stakeholder engagement is considered vital to the success and improvement of a school district. Strong stakeholder engagement can improve students' outcomes. And so again, we are recommending a focus of doubling down on these 3 areas in particular. Does that mean that we're not going to focus on other things, other content areas? Absolutely we will. But this is where we need to double down. This is where we need to align our resources and align our focus in order to ensure that our students are receiving an equitable, excellence, and accessible education, and that they all have what they need to succeed. So with that, I'm going to turn things back over to Ms. Rath.
Okay, so where are we right now? Right now, based upon our actual numbers for enrollment for our average daily membership, as well as our charter students, we have growth of roughly 49 students that we know we're going to need to have funding for in this upcoming fiscal year. And that growth equates to a $27 per pupil increase or $200,000. That's where we are at this point in time in regards to growth. We will be coming back to you in the coming meetings with our recommendations that will all be couched up under the 3 foci that we have here before you as our recommendation. And finally, the most important thing that I want to just share, that I want everyone to walk away with is our budget calendar tonight. March the 9th is when we will be bringing the superintendent's recommended budget to you. for the first formal presentation. After that, there will be a public hearing where the public will be, have an opportunity to provide feedback or input in regards to that. We will be hoping to have board approval and a board's adopted budget on April the 6th, which will then be presented to our county commissioners on April the 28th at a joint meeting with the boards of education, where we both come together and present our local requests for the upcoming fiscal year. They will then go through a series of work sessions and public hearings, and early in June, actually on June the 9th, we should know their intent to fund for the upcoming fiscal year. Is there any questions?
Can we get this posted to the web, this calendar, so the community knows all of these different, because I know every year there's confusion about where can they comment, especially between our level and the county, because obviously at the county level, you know, it's very important for people to be able to comment. Sorry, Sarah?
Oh, I think that's a good idea, and just to add, that wasn't my point, but I think if you could put a like, yeah, these are the ones that are public comment, that could be helpful.
Okay, absolutely.
Mine was a question, so I see the fund balance appropriation you have in there for this year, but are not anticipating that for next year, or could you just speak to that?
Yes, the fund balance that is there for fiscal year 20 is what the board approved in their budget. And as we begin developing the budget, if we have any recommendations of fund balance to be appropriated at that time, is then when that will transition over into that next column, as well as anything that may have already been previously appropriated that may carry multiple years to be expended. Great question.
Going back to the slide number 6, it's where what is the cost of low literacy? Because this is gonna, further back.
Yeah. Can you give me, if I can get you to 6 quickly.
Your all's numbers are gonna be different than one I have. It's,
This one?
There is.
yes, ma'am. The reason I'm asking this is, and it's tying into what I said earlier, I think we're looking at a long-term solution that we're saying, hey, we need to do something with pre-K. We have to take a look at our core curriculum and make sure that it's addressing the new needs of every student, which means as we're going forward, someone who is a first grader now, hopefully when they become a third grader in 3 years, 2 years, that they're gonna be college or career ready, that are, whatever we've done. But I also think that we have to have a short-term program to say that that third grader that's behind now, we have to come up with a program to get that third grader caught up as they're going into the 4th grade, to take away some of that wagon that they're pulling, that we need a very, and in my mind, if it means pulling out a fund balance for a very robust tutoring program, I think we need to have that discussion. And then the other one, because it's costly, not just from a financial one, but when you're going on the number of 2/3 of the children in the juvenile justice, that the judge, that we're building jails based on that, that's expensive. So it's gonna be a lot cheaper to catch them in the 3rd grade before they get in to the juvenile justice. And it's also a potential to address, in my mind, part of the discipline issues. That if I'm sitting at the same level as the children next to me, I'm not gonna be acting up as much because I'm a full participant of that class. So I'm saying if I'm a full participant, cause I'm at the same level as those other students, I am less likely to act out. So it's gonna, in my opinion, it's gonna help on discipline. And the one that really struck out, and it came in, that 60% need remedial instructions in college or community college. That's expensive too. but it's also private industry does that. When I was in private industry, and this was a long time ago, we actually came in and did remedial training on site. And that was an expense for us. So there's all these opportunities to eliminate some of these costs that we're gonna incur no matter what as a society, and just making sure that we're catching that third grader that's already behind. So I see it as a two-prong. And I know you do too. Okay.
All right, Dr. Rich.
Yeah, we've talked about this for the last couple of years, and I think there's a wonderful opportunity to look at the after-school care program as being an opportunity to help with extra academic tutorials. And if it means hiring teachers and paying them a stipend to work 2 afternoons a week at our locations where the children already are, it would be worth a serious look. We've talked about this. It goes beyond playing games, bouncing balls, coloring, drawing, acting out in drama, whatever. Just actually do some academic tutorials. And I saw this in place at Gravelly Hill a couple of years ago, and they had a really viable program up there. They had maybe 75, 80 kids. And the parents would pick them up in that afternoon, but they had a lot of meaningful activities going on. I think that's also part of this greater plan of taking a serious look at, that's another doorway we should go in and see what we can do. Just putting it out there.
Thank you.
Sarah?
Well, just a comment that I really liked several parts of this presentation about what the priorities are. Very much, I think those 3 pillars made so much sense to just what I've seen in the district too.
Mhm.
So, and I bet a lot of what we're gonna hear in the listen and learn. I particularly liked the concept, 2 concepts. One, the idea of literacy as a civil right, and what that question, are we providing that to students, how that causes us to think about it, as well as the question, do all students have what they need to succeed? And like applying that equity lens to each of those priorities, and really asking that question and embedding that in each of those questions. I just really appreciated that, excited to see where that leads us with the budget request.
Hillary?
Most of my thoughts have been shared, but I just wanted to say how much I appreciate the data being represented so clearly and easy to understand. It's really sobering, like you said, but also in a way refreshing to be able to see the disparities so clearly, because I think it explains why we need to be focusing in these areas so clearly. So thank you for that.
Anyone else? Thank you. All right. We're now moving into the action section. The first one we have is the resolution for Black History Month. Tony?
Thank you, Will. Orange County Board of Education resolution to honor and recognize Black History Month. Whereas the Orange County school system is a center of culturally diverse learning where all students are educated to their fullest potential, and as a center of our community around which we come together in support of the education of all students. And whereas African American History Month encourages our community, society, and schools to celebrate the achievements of African Americans, and whereas the observance enables all students to understand the importance of preserving the civil rights of all citizens, and whereas the Orange County School District recognizes that each student needs an opportunity to understand the common humanity underlying all people, to develop pride in his or her own identity, culture, and heritage, and to understand and respect the identity, culture, and heritage of others, whereas corresponding school activities held during this month encourage students to strive to be inclusive, learn and engage for the best education as a means to fulfill their potential, and whereas the achievements of African Americans have benefited all humankind, whereas not only during the month of February, but throughout our school year, it is important to recognize all the contributions of African Americans in society, and to recognize disparities in student outcomes in order to move towards greater equity in our education system, and the greater community. Therefore, be resolved that the Orange County Board of Education hereby affirm that February be designated Black History Month. Adopted this 10th day of February, 2020. Chair, Will Atherton, Superintendent Dr. Monique Felder.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, Tina. The next one is the School Counselor Week. Do you have someone that would read that?
How to do?
Thank you.
Orange County Schools Board of Education resolution of support for school counselors and of a National School Counseling Week. Whereas school counselors are employed in public and private schools to help students reach their full potential, and whereas school counselors are actively committed to helping students explore their abilities, strengths, interests, and talents as these traits relate to career awareness and development, and whereas school counselors help parents focus on ways to further the educational, personal, and social growth of their children, and whereas school counselors work with teachers and other educators to help students explore their potential and set realistic goals for themselves, and whereas school counselors seek to identify and utilize community resources that can enhance and complement comprehensive school counseling programs and help students become productive members of society, and whereas comprehensive developmental school counseling programs are considered an integral part of the educational process that enables all students to achieve success in school. Therefore, the Orange County Schools Board of Education does hereby resolve that February 3rd through 7th, 2020 be recognized as National School Counseling Week in appreciation for the excellent services our counselors provide to students.
Do you have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, Hillary.
You're welcome.
All right, the CTE Technical Education, Sarah?
I'm gonna read the one that's in the, I'm not reading this one. Okay. Whereas providing career and technical education prepares students to succeed in academics and careers in both established and emerging industries, and whereas the mission of North Carolina Secondary Career and Technical Education, should I hold on?
No,
reading
no.
this? No, this is for the next thing. Okay.
You're joining the call with one other person.
Cool. And whereas the mission of North Carolina Secondary Career and Technical Education is to empower all students to be successful individuals, workers, and leaders in our global economy, and whereas career and technical education programs help students become the skilled workers employers need to perform the jobs of today and tomorrow, and whereas career and technical education programs in North Carolina provide education for all students in the areas of agriculture, business, career development, family consumer sciences, finance, health science, information technology, marketing and entrepreneurship, technology, engineering and design and trade and industrial education. And whereas North Carolina career and technical student organizations such as DECA, Future Business Leaders of America, Family Career and Community Leaders of America, Future Farmers of America, HOSA Future Health Professionals, Skills USA, and the Technology Student Association support the work of career and technical education programs to develop character, citizenship, leadership, and technical skills essential for students who are preparing for the workforce and further education. And whereas in addition to North Carolina's 34 career pathways certified by the NC Works Commission, career and technical education programs aid in our state's workforce development efforts. And whereas the Strengthening Career and Technical Education for the 21st Century Act passed by the United States Congress demonstrates the crucial mission of these initiatives to enhance student readiness for successful careers and strengthen North Carolina's workforce. Now therefore, I, Roy Cooper, Governor of the State of North Carolina, do hereby proclaim February 2020 as Career and Technical Education Month in North Carolina and commend its observance to all citizens.
Move the approval.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Got two comments. Who is on the phone?
First, thank you, Sarah, for reading that. So for the next items, Sharon Braxton was not able to physically be here,
Okay.
so she's here to answer any questions that may come up on the Durham Technical College
Okay.
items we have coming up. So this was just a way to facilitate it in case there are questions that can't be answered.
Comments on the career and technical, now that it's being recognized by the governor, I think it's an opportunity to speak out and saying that maybe it's time that we start having a discussion to expand this into our middle schools. that there's a lot of opportunities that if we start it early enough, the ag program, it's a leadership program. When I went to school, it was actually in the middle schools as a career and technical path. So there's a lot of the career and technical paths that if we start it early enough, that the student has that option of choosing a different non-traditional career path in middle school. So I hope that we will continue that discussion.
So I do
Did
know,
you finish your motion?
Yeah, I thought it was approved, wasn't it? Did you-
yeah.
Yeah.
We didn't say all in
We didn't know,
Yeah.
we didn't.
We didn't say all in
Oh,
favor.
no, you
I'll-
didn't finish the
I'm
motion.
sorry. I'm interrupted. Brenda, thank you.
Okay, I just-
All right, any other discussion on the motion?
I thought we voted in
Yeah.
that.
I thought we
I didn't
discussed
hear.
it.
That's what I thought.
We need more, because I
Rerun.
thank Sarah for,
Listen.
hey, there's no harm in
Yeah,
Yeah.
just
getting
wanna
approval
make sure we
again. We
have
will,
the motion.
we're gonna be sure.
I will look back at that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
And that's, I just want to make a comment on it.
Yeah, all I was gonna say is that I do know that we do have CTE, but not all items available, because there were some that, the only reason I know is there was like forensics, and you can't get that in the high school, but you could in the middle, so I do know there are some.
There are
but-
some, but making sure that we hear what the students are wanting, because that was a great idea, of reaching out to the students and saying, hey, what do you need for Black American history, African American history? I think it's to hear from the students.
Absolutely. All right, any other comments or questions before we move on? All right, the next item is the college liaison MOU.
I know.
Okay, so is Ms. Braxton going to present, or Shannon, can you hear us?
I don't think she's there.
Hi, I can hear you.
Oh, there she is. Okay, so we're looking at the first
This
one.
is,
Go ahead.
Shannon, did you want to introduce yourself? Is that- Are you there?
this is Shannon Braxton. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes.
can you hear us?
Yes, very, there's a lot of muffled, so I'm not really, I was making sure that you could hear me. So, the MOU for the college liaison has been serving in our school system. They serve all 3 high schools. They are very instrumental in helping with students with CCP, which is Career and College Promise. We've had this going on in our schools, and we just felt that to make it very official and clean, we needed this MOU in place. So you have a copy of the MOU on the assembly tonight.
And there's no local funding requirement on that position, correct?
That is correct. That is paid for through Durham Tech, and we provide space and we provide access. At a previous board meeting, you did approve the data sharing with that person, the college liaison and the career coach.
So this is an action item.
So do we have a motion?
I move the approval of
Second.
the MOU.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries. So
Okay.
next agenda item.
So the second item, if you can hear us.
So the next item is the First Amendment to the Career Coach MOU and the Pre-Audit certification.
Was it 2 separate? Oh, yeah.
Yes, there's
Correct.
2
So
items.
this item comes to you tonight because we need the signature on the certification page, which happens to be the next item on your agenda. We need the certification page signed for the MOU for the career coach that was approved at board meeting October 22nd, 2018. But that certification page was not signed at that time. And since that time, we have realized that this First Amendment, which is what's on the agenda, cleans up the language of the MOU.
Yeah, go go ahead.
Okay, so this is Attorney Blumberg. So, yes, the board approved the amendment in August 26, 2019, and as Ms. Braxton indicated, that did clean up the language. It added a pre-audit certification, which was required to make it a legal document, and it also clarified the school system's funding obligation, which would essentially be 1/2 of the local, or 1/4 total, so that it more accurately reflected the funding requirements. The issue that came up at that time was that the board had asked with that amendment that that one of the additional schools be added in, and so it is my understanding that has not been allowed.
So,
Yeah.
so I'll add in a little color.
Yeah.
So it was brought to me, the
Partnership.
third partnership was not added, and I would not sign it.
Right.
I sent it to, hey, go get this signed, because the board agreed to that. And my understanding is that was not approved on the other side, so that's my understanding.
Right, and Ms. Braxton attempted for that to happen, and my understanding is so did Durham Tech. It's just that the funding agent, NC Works, that they were not prepared to approve that, and so now it's to the point where the district's in a position of, you can approve the amendment with the understanding now that, that you would not have partnership included, and so that's kind of where it is. And if you want to add anything, you're free to interject. But when this came to me, I just wanted to make sure that since the board did approve it with the understanding that partnership would be added, and since it wasn't added, I wanted to come back so that the board had full transparency about what you were approving, and so that at this point you have the opportunity to approve it again. Again, it does clean up the funding obligation so that it's really 1/4. It does add the pre-audit certificate, which is required to make it a legal binding document, and so that you now would know which schools are covered and which aren't if you decide to approve it.
And
May I interject, please? This is Shannon. Can you hear me?
yeah, Shannon, let me just add one other thing, because I had to sit down with multiple people
Yeah.
to figure this out. So when we originally had this in 2018, the pre-audit certification wasn't signed, and therefore the grant could not be executed. So when we approved this in October, and it didn't have partnership, and we said, no, we're not gonna sign it until that happens, and then it came back, and now it's back because now it's in jeopardy of losing this grant. So that's why we're having this discussion right now, because if we don't approve it, then we will lose this grant and this position. So I just wanted to color in a couple of lines on here about how we got to where we're at. Sorry, Shannon, go. Oh, go ahead.
Second.
So, hold on, can
Discussion? Well, we're at discussion, so.
can the students who attend partnership access this person if they go to one of the other high schools or something like that? I mean, I don't wanna lose grant money, and I feel like it's not acceptable to me to not include our third high school.
So I will let Shannon answer that
Okay,
question.
fair enough.
I know what I feel like it should be, but Shannon, did you hear the question?
Yes, so what I'd like to do is to, hopefully you can hear me clear
Yes.
enough so that I make sure that I try to make sure I enunciate this correctly. The certification page, that is the next item on the agenda, that goes back to October of 22nd of 2018. At that time, you approved the memorandum of understanding to put the career coach at Orange High School. At that time, it was approved by the board, signed, the MOU was signed, and there is a letter from Dr. Work that was dated in September of 2018 that said the board supported it. As I view this, there's just a missing signature on the certification page. Partnership nor Cedar Ridge High School were ever a part of this conversation until August of 2019. So almost a full year later, when I came back to you, which is why I think Melissa titled this amendment the first amendment, because the second amendment is the one where we were proposing adding Cedar Ridge that you approved in August. So in October 2018, this grant was for Orange High School, and that was what was approved. Does that clear that up, or did I just muddy it even more?
So just for clarity, right now, we are only talking about the amendment, not the certification, which clarifies what Jonathan was saying, how it gets funded, instead of us saying we pay half, we pay a quarter. So right now, we're just talking about the amendment. We have a motion and a second. Is there?
I still got.
Sure, that's
because I'm-
discussion.
Yeah, I'm having the same question that you did, Hillary. What is preventing a student from partnership, from participating in this program, if they're assigned to, if their normal district school is Orange High School, could they not participate as quote-unquote at Orange High School? Did you hear the question, Shannon? I'm just trying to make sure, I'll go ahead and say, I'm gonna vote to approve. But I'm just wanting clarity, can a partnership academy student participate in this program at one of the other two high schools?
Right, at this time, the career coach is only at Orange High School. So if a student is at partnership that was assigned to Orange High School, then I would think legitimately, yes, that would happen. If I understood your question correctly.
You did.
Any other questions?
So there's not someone at Cedar Ridge now?
No, this career coach was at Cedar Ridge, the previous MOU that was there, I'm sorry, let me see my date, 2015, and it ended in 2019 in June. And then, so in October of 2018, the board approved the next cycle, which was from 2019 through 2022, and that put that person at Orange High School. And the previous cycle of this grant was at Cedar Ridge.
They're moving.
Switching it over.
Both schools can participate.
Right now, it's Orange High School, and then all three middle schools.
Mhm.
Mr. Applicant, Ms. Patricia had her hand up.
Did you have something you wanted to add?
Well, I would like maybe to clarify just the purpose of the grant, which maybe it would be helpful. So the reason why they didn't, sorry, the reason why they, I'm Patricia Gould, I'm sorry, I
Thank
work at
you.
Durham Tech.
Thank you for
Yes.
coming.
Thank you for coming.
The purpose of the grant is to work with 9 through 12 students. And so when a high school is over 1,000 students, for one person, they're saying, we really want that person to focus on that one population then, because that's a lot of students. And the purpose is to start in the 9th grade and actually go down into middle school, which the career coach at Orange High has done quite a bit of work in the middle schools. She's visiting regularly, so she's doing career awareness with the 9th graders and then doing more activities with the 10th graders. Introducing not just Durham Tech, which of course we want all your students to come to Durham Tech, but just college readiness in general, how you think about careers, working closely with your CDCs, and then running career fairs. She's doing a lot of that stuff. So to do it in 2 large high schools to that level is the reason why they said we want you to pick a high school when it's a big, when it's a significant number of students. The college liaison who works in both high schools and at Partnership Academy, that's where your other schools are getting covered. So she's working at Cedar Ridge, she's working at Orange, and she's working at Partnership. So there is coverage for those 3 schools that way. I just wanted to.
No, thank you.
It was very helpful.
Thank you. There was concern, there's a gap,
Yeah.
obviously. All right, so we do have a motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. So the second item, you've already heard about.
So it makes it easier, right?
Yeah.
This is the actual certification. If you look at it, this breaks down how the funding occurs. In the original, it only had the top two items, Durham Tech and Orange County. But now you see the others, so the funding's clear that we are not half, we're a quarter.
Right, motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, Shannon.
Thank you for allowing me to call in.
All right, have a
Thank
good
you.
rest of your night.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yes.
Everyone else has left a call.
Yes, I know.
Thank you, Sarah.
That's why it hadn't been on all evening. All right, next item is the board attorney report.
This is to announce an executed settlement in the matter of RM versus Orange County Board of Education, Office of Administrative Hearings, case number 19 EDC 06125, settlement in the amount of $100,000 plus other settlement terms, including a release of liability. That concludes my report.
All right, with that, we are now adjourned.
Well,
Well, we have a
Motion to
motion to
adjourn.
adjourn. I'm
Second.
getting ahead of myself. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Meeting is adjourned.